Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are here to talk about compensation management for the modern SMB. I'm going to go ahead and give our audience about a minute or so to join before we get started, but I'm really excited to talk today about all things compensation management, but particularly we're going to be focusing on things like benchmarking, total reward, how to stay competitive in the recruitment process, and then we'll also take a look at PayScale's tool, which is a really incredible compensation management tool that provides great benchmarking information for us. So we'll take a look at that as well. A couple housekeeping items. If you are interested, go ahead and put in the chat where it is that you're calling in from. You can use this chat to speak with other attendees that are joining us today. We also have the Q&A section of Zoom as well. That Q&A section will be used for the questions that you have for our panelists that we'll cover at the very end of the session. This is a SHRM certification webinar, so you will get one PDC for participating in this webinar too. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started, and I'll start off with introductions. My name is Jocelyn King. I'm the CEO and founder of VirgilHR. VirgilHR is an employment and labor law compliance software, and we have a lot of different features that are super helpful for HR practitioners, ranging from a chatbot to an employee handbook builder to legal updates, a multi-state comparison tool, and even PayScale's tool as well, which you can get access to through Virgil. So we'll talk a little bit at the end about how you can learn more about Virgil if you're interested. But my background's in human resources. I've been in HR my whole career, and I'm really excited about this topic in particular because I'm not an expert in compensation management. And so we have folks today that are. So I'd like to introduce first Amy Stewart. Amy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. I am recently promoted to the manager of the research and content team here at PayScale. I will be sharing with you some of our insights from our annual compensation best practices report, talking a little bit about what trends we're seeing in the compensation management space, and then passing it over to Kevin to share some examples of how the space is changing in terms of technology tools and just kind of what's out there in terms of how everything is changing in the tech side of things.
Great.
Thanks
Thanks,
so
Amy.
much.
And Kevin, yeah, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Hey, everyone, I'm Kevin Smith. I'll be the one walking you through the tool today. I have a couple of different roles here at PayScale, looking after relationships with really important strategic partners like Virgil HR, as well as being a verse comp professional, being deep in the weeds in our technology and helping our clients get the most out of them. Can't wait to show some real innovation in our technology today, and I think it will complement really nicely what Amy's going to be walking us through. So thanks for having me.
Great, thank you. All right, so quick agenda here. We're going to talk about compensation management fundamentals with Amy. We'll talk about the compliance landscape as it relates to pay transparency. We'll do a live pay scale product demo with Kevin. And then we'll talk about questions that you all have in a live Q&A session at the very end. So I'll go ahead and pass it off to Amy next.
Thank you so much. So the insights I'm going to share with you today come from PayScale's 2026 Compensation Best Practices Report. I want to flash that up here just so you know where these numbers come from, and you can download the report if you want to see more information that's in there. It's over 100 pages. We're going to look at a couple of insights today that are relevant to today's topic. But we are calling 2026 the year of strategic alignment, following the year of contention in 2025. And I highly expect that 2027 is going to be a year of acceleration. And we're going to talk a little bit about all of the things that are coming together from the side of labor market pressures, pay transparency on the incline, and the intercession of AI-powered data and technology that is really transforming the compensation management landscape right now, and show you some examples of how organizations are getting their feet under them amidst all of this change and economic upheaval. So what we are seeing right now is that the compensation management space is being shaped by some big forces. One, we are in a cooling labor market, although there are signs that it might be picking back up. We are, as a result of that, seeing shrinking budgets. Efficiency is the name of the game. Finances are driving a lot of the conversations at a lot of organizations. It's not a recession, but it feels like a recession in a lot of ways to a lot of companies. And at the same time, we are seeing innovation and the accelerating impact of AI, where investment is required for organizations to start training and understanding how to use these evolutions in technology that are completely overhauling spaces that have been static for a long time. And compensation is one of those spaces. Amidst all of this, there's a concerted push to center outcomes, and the executive team is caring more and more about how compensation and total rewards is impacting the entire organization. They've always cared about it to a certain extent, but they're caring a lot more because all of the answers are at their fingertips and they're asking a lot more questions. So you can see on the side here that there are some stats that kind of back up how this is being interpreted by organizations. We're seeing reduced pay increases across the board. We are seeing 51%, a majority, cite balancing pay expectations with financial limits as their top challenge this year. We're seeing that 61% of orgs have updated existing roles to include AI-related skills, but a smaller percent are actually paying for those skills. And we are seeing a strong majority, 68%, say that their executive leaders are asking questions daily, monthly, quarterly about how all of your operations are succeeding or not succeeding, and that compensation is viewed as a strategic lever for operational efficiency and growth. Take the next slide here. So how confident are you in compensation management against all of these upheavals and changes? We asked our audience, which is largely compensation professionals, also comprised of HR leaders and anyone within the organization who touches comp. And we see that the confidence hovers in the 60s, low to mid 60s for most organizations on different things that we measured. So we asked about confidence in pay increases being competitive. We asked about confidence in market pricing or the salary offers that you're putting out there to attract talent. We're asking about total rewards, how to compensation plus benefits and incentives and other things inspire your talent to stay engaged at your organization. Low to mid 60s is where those numbers are totaled out. That can be a glass half full or a glass half empty, depending on how you look at it. I think that a lot of organizations want to be doing more and to feel more confident than this. But we do see that a majority feel they're like relatively confident now. This slide is really important, and we're going to come back to it when Kevin demos some of the things that are happening in the technology space today. But we asked, what are the most and least important comp activities? We made our audience choose one, which is very difficult because there are a lot of things that are important and all of these things intersect to a certain degree, but it gives you a sense of where people are spending their time and where that they are the most stressed during the upheaval that is taking place right now. This survey was fielded from October to December of 2025, and the report was released in February of 2026. So this may already be changing based on how fast things are moving on the technology side, but I want to just point out a couple of interesting insights here. So we do see that compensation strategy is the most important. I think that will continue to be the case and continue to accelerate, even as AI-powered tools take over some certain aspects of functionality within teams, because strategy is really what drives outcomes. And so that strategy really has to be right. At the bottom of the list, we see survey participation, variable pay design, and market pricing for new roles. That we might see some flex around. Market pricing for new roles in particular, if you're talking about how AI skills are changing the landscape and your pay transparency around AI skills can be a really critical thing that I think is going to rear its head in the near future if it's not already happening. We also see compensation technology and tools kind of lower on the list. That's usually true year after year because the strategic stuff takes precedent. It's the day-to-day of your job that you find to be most important, least important, and where you spend the most investment. But AI is really changing the game. And there are a lot of organizations that are starting to realize that if they are not dug into how AI, whether it's agentic or LLMs or using machine learning, how they're leveraging those tools, that they're going to be behind the wave within as soon as 3 to 6 months. If they're not currently investigating and exploring those things because of just how fast that landscape is changing. So we will dig into a little bit of how PayScale is reacting to that challenge, but certainly some interesting numbers in here as far as priorities. In order to be on the ball with those things, we are seeing that more organizations are investing in their compensation maturity. This is a complicated chart. I'm not going to explain the whole thing in great detail, but just the big takeaway is that we are seeing a higher percentage of organizations targeting a advanced or optimizing state when it comes to how they're managing compensation compared to previous years. So you see this number sit at like 10 to 15% lower when you combine those two numbers than we used to see. And that's because organizations from very small companies with less than 100 people to very large organizations with more than 50,000 are starting to really concentrate on, do we have the right data? Are we leveraging that data in a consistent and fair manner? Are we caring about pay equity? Are we transparent? Are we compliant? Are we utilizing the tools at our disposal to become competitive in this marketplace as it is changing? And that has really revolutionized how organizations are focused on compensation when it comes to their overall organization's ability to keep pace with the market. And I think that you'll love this one because we're going to dig into pay transparency in a bit more detail here from Jocelyn. But we are seeing that positions on the pay transparency spectrum is shifting. This is a really key insight for me because we've been running this question for 10 years. And we are seeing that for the very first time that folks who are saying that they are sharing pay ranges either across the organization or publicly are starting to see a higher percentage of organizations that are in that space. That is, I think, due to pay transparency. It's also due to pay equity because organizations are realizing they have to be offering fair pay in order to get the right talent in the door. And in order to be equitable, in order to be transparent, they first have to be equitable. So both of those things together are driving this shift. And of course, strategy is the foundation of that whole complex. So in order to be equitable, in order to be transparent, in order to leverage the top technology, you need to have a compensation strategy, a formal one. And we are seeing that number increase year over year. We especially have seen this since the COVID-19 pandemic. And we do also ask this question of, well, what does that include? Because compensation strategy means different things to different organizations. Some things it means we have market pricing. We target the 50th percentile. These are our talent markets that we go after, and they stop there. Others have formal compensation structures. They have a pay philosophy, which we highly recommend. They might have targeting by different job or level for the importance of that pay. You should, if you don't, have a promotion strategy. Only 29% of organizations do. You should know where to slot folks on their pay range and how they progress up that range after they are hired. Your pay transparency needs a strategy. It shouldn't just end with compliance. It should be holistic throughout the organization. And you're probably going to need a cost of living adjustment strategy because we are seeing that cost of living has been impacting pay a lot more than it used to over the last 5 years or so. And that could happen again over the next 5 or 10 years. So having a process for how you adapt to change in the market, because there will always be macroeconomic things that impact how compensation is managed, but having some kind of a written down process for how you react to that, what you do differently with your benchmarking, how you reward people, how you engage people, how you get them to stay at your organization versus going into competitors' organization is really important. And I think it's especially important in our current market, and I'll tell you why. We are in a current market where it feels like organizations have all of the power. There is a shift toward an employer's market. We see low hires, we see low quits, low turnover is historic, but that's going to shift at some point. And when it does, there'll be this flood of people who are suddenly grabbing into opportunities at different organizations and leaving in a mass exodus because they've been holding and hugging onto their jobs so tight. There's this kind of like, oh, now these other opportunities are appearing. They're going to start seeing people pepper off. So in order to retain your top talent, you need to have a strategy in place before that happens. In order to do that, you need to have salary data that you can trust. At PayScale, we understand that there's everything is based on data. And we're going to talk a little bit about, or Kevin's going to talk a little bit about AI and why you don't want to trust, say, an LLM to benchmark your pricing for your jobs. You shouldn't go to Claude, Anthropic, or to Gemini, or to ChatGPT and say, what should this position make? Because that's probably going to get you in trouble from a legality standpoint, from a pay equity standpoint, from a unconscious bias standpoint, because the LLMs are just an aggregate of human thinking, and that human thinking is not always correct. So you want to make sure that you are using trusted, verified sources that come from employers and not crowdsourced just from the internet, and to make sure that you are checking those sources and reacting to the market in real time. So we have seen the interest in traditional publishers, which is the primary trusted source, as well as closed networks that are pulling directly from systems, grow in popularity over recent years, and particularly in 2026. And I'm going to wrap up here with two more slides. So we have pay equity analysis also on the rise. It did a dip between 2022 and 2025, but it is rising again in 2026. And I think this is because of pay transparency laws and because of all the other things that we talked about in terms of, in order to get your folks to stay at your organization, you really have to care that pay is fair, that pay is defensible, both within conversations between managers and employees and also in a court of law. So making sure that you're investing in pay equity analysis, that you're doing it not just once a year, not just once every 5 years as an audit, but continuously. Every time you hire someone, every time you give a pay raise, every time you promote someone, to check that pay against your current employees and make sure that you are not building discrepancies and discriminations that can widen over time. So that is that piece. We'll do one more here. Variable pay. So this is an interesting one. Variable pay is in decline in 2026, which can result in maybe retention problems down the road, because it is one of those areas where you can reward performance. And a lot of organizations seem to have put performance rewards on hold in the last year or so because they have been prioritizing efficiency. We can see a reversal of that, but very, very high potential in the future to start rewarding performance again, because they will no longer have that power over the employer of the employee job market or the landscape. And when you start losing people, you start caring more about your retention strategy, and your variable pay and total rewards is a very big piece of that puzzle.
Amy, before we jump into pay transparency, I actually have a question about this graph, if that's okay. There's a huge uptick in none of the above. Do you know what it is people are actually looking for if we're seeing a decline in some of the other areas this year?
So what this chart is showing is that last year, that light blue bar was higher across all of these things. And then none of the above is the default option for we didn't give variable pay or we didn't look at variable pay this year. So no, I can't tell you what's in none of the above, like from the chart. I would guess that organizations are doing creative things, like we gave more time, we gave more PTO, we gave more benefits potentially, although we have a separate question of that, and I know that that's not true. So there are other things that they might be doing to try to be creative about total rewards, but the none of the above isn't really a capture of other things. It's just we didn't do these things.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine it would be difficult for those that are trying to build a strategy and aren't always getting like the support that they need from their senior leadership on the budget side of things. So I was curious to see if there was something else that people were talking about.
That's a fascinating question. We're actually doing a webinar on PayScale about that budget. Like, how does HR talk to the finance team about securing a budget? When should you have that conversation? What data or metrics or numbers should you bring to that conversation to get it to go the way that you need it to go? Because finance looks at the budget very differently than HR does. They come in with different perspectives and different priorities. And it is really important to be aligned and to have a strong leader who can hold that seat at the table and make sure that the rest of the executive team understands the importance of what compensation does within the organization and how it is really tremendously critical and core to how your employees are performing. Like, if you're not rewarding them for the work that they do, why should they put their effort into it? I think that's a very key differentiator that a lot of organizations, when they don't feel the pressure from the market, can let slack. And you want to be careful that you don't do that.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, for those interested in that, definitely check out PayScale on LinkedIn so that you can follow them and learn more about that webinar because that's super interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we'll switch over to compliance landscape and talk a little bit about pay transparency, a little bit about also pay equity as well. So When it's so funny, I did a webinar on pay transparency in 2024, and I kid you not, half of this list was there. So there's been a lot of activity on the legislative side, not just across states, but also across localities as well. So, New York, for example, was always pretty progressive with pay transparency and pay equity. But now you can see, like Ohio, for example, they aren't doing anything at a state level. So, some of these localities have taken it upon themselves to pass pay transparency and pay equity laws at the local level, which is really interesting. It also makes it much harder for us as HR professionals to track all of this because they're constantly changing and it's quite nuanced, especially when you get to the local level. That's something you kind of want to figure out how you can track this stuff. That's something Virgil can do for you. But there are plenty of other solutions out there that can help with that as well. I did want to note on this that Delaware, their law goes into effect, I think January 1st of 2027, but I wanted to put it on here just for anybody who had employees in Delaware or was considering hiring in Delaware, that they know that that's something that's popping up soon. And I wanted to give a few examples of some of these laws so that you can get an idea of what it is states and localities are doing today. As we know, there's no federal law that requires pay transparency or pay equity necessarily. So we kind of have to take a look at the state and localities. So California, for example, if you have one or more employee, you have to disclose the position's salary range to your current employees if they ask for it. Also, if you have 15 or more employees, you're required to include the pay scale for the position of any job posting you have, including those that are remote. That can be done remotely, rather, from the state of Florida. So keep in mind that that isn't just like a posting on your career page. If you're posting on Indeed or any others, it needs to be in there as well. And then also just as a note, you can, if you have 15 or more employees and it's a remote job and you're considering employees in any state, including California, then if this job can be done remotely, you do need to do this. So keep that in mind. The state of New York, if you have 4 or more employees, you have to provide the job description for any type of job or promotion, any transfer opportunity to existing employees. Interestingly, it says if a job description exists. So just keep in mind that you want to be kind of following precedent. If you have a job description for some jobs, you kind of need to have a job description for all jobs in this instance. So just make sure it isn't one of those things where you say, oh, well, I have this product manager role and I have a job description for that. But to get out of providing a job description for my sales job, I'm just not going to create one. You want to make sure that you're following precedent internally. And then you also have to disclose the compensation or the range of compensation in any ad that you have. It can be an online ad, it can be a newspaper ad, like wherever it is, not just for a job, but for a promotion as well. So keep that in mind with your existing employees. New York City, this is 4 employees with at least 1 in New York City. So a little nuance there. You have to disclose the minimum and maximum salary range for any posting for internal promotions or anything like a transfer opportunity or something like that. You also have to do the same for any advertisement for a job role that will or could be filled in New York City. And that includes jobs that can be done in the field or remotely from the city. So Colorado, their equal pay for equal work act. The first thing is that you have to notify your employees of any vacancies that you have. The only exception to that is inline promotions. Your job postings have to include an application deadline, the salary, and the benefits. And you have to communicate these details, communicate details about new hires to your team. The other thing, and I actually thought this was pretty excellent, is you have to clearly outline a career path, progression requirements, and benefits as well. That went into effect January of 2024. And then we have Hawaii's pay transparency bill. So this law essentially prohibits employers from discriminating from a pay perspective in substantially similar work across all protected categories. So I thought that was really interesting. It isn't just like apples for apples. If it's substantially similar, it protects discrimination across those categories, those protected categories. From a salary disclosure perspective, the job listing also is expected to include the hourly rate or the salary range. And then you see here the listed exceptions that Hawaii has: internal transfers and promotions, public positions under a CBA, and then employers with less than 50 employees. So there's a ton more to be said about pay transparency. But I hope this gives you a little bit of a flavor on what states are doing. Some of them are very focused on career pathing and making sure that that's transparent and available to their employees. Other times it's going to be actually providing pay information to their current employees. And then there are times too when you might have to actually post those salary expectations in a job posting. And you want to be careful because we have seen a lot of lawsuits now where people are just applying to jobs even if they don't qualify for them, in the hope that that employer might not be following the pay transparency laws for that jurisdiction, so that then they can sue them. And that's not happening more and more, which is pretty sad. Where some employers are getting out of this is when the candidate just simply doesn't qualify for the job whatsoever. They're not taken as a serious candidate. But you do want to be very careful about that, which is why staying up to date is so important. With that said, I will now pass it off to Kevin for the PayScale product demo. And Kevin, let me stop sharing so you can share your screen.
Thanks so much, Jocelyn and Amy. I appreciate it very much. Yeah, this is really exciting. I think everything that we talked about, all the changes when it comes to pay transparency, pay equity, the strategic focus on geos and paying very specifically, having that strategy in place is definitely going to be the focus of this very brief demo of PayFactors. PayFactors is one of our core platforms at PayScale. It's a compensation management solution which integrates with HRIS systems. It's something that VirgilHR uses. Many member organizations use it. Consultants for indirect use, and then also organizations use this technology. It's excellent for, I'd say, that cross-team, cross-departmental collaboration. Tons and tons that you can do in this tool. The focus of today is going to be on that AI pricing. So I'm going to go into a tool called Smart Price and walk you all through that. Essentially, what it lets us do is price a set of jobs or the entire catalog of your positions very, very quickly, even automatically and instantly. You could have a request, for example, from talent acquisition. They need a handful of jobs priced across some different geographies. Maybe it's New York, maybe it's Colorado, and you do need to be able to show that you're using a reputable data source. You can defend your pay decisions and the whole philosophy and the whole approach to pay. You can do that with this technology. So what I've just opened up right here for us right now is Smart Price. This is a module within PayFactors. You can see different previous projects that I had done. I'm going to go ahead and start a new one for y'all. Let's just call this, manufacturing by geo. This is not just going to be one pricing nationally for some positions, but rather this is going to look at different locations all at once. What the tool does is it looks at roles, responsibilities, years of experience, education. It starts to look at leveling and hierarchy, business function, level, all these type of things to find matches in the data that you purchase. So, PayScale is an excellent data provider, but we also have other data sources out there for organizations that pull all of those into a system like PayFactors. they're able to go ahead and find the jobs internally that they want to benchmark or that they got from talent acquisition or a request from somewhere in the business. And they'll go ahead and put this in. So let's just go ahead and type in manufacturing. I'm going to choose all of the different jobs that are there. Looks like about 11% of my total catalog of positions. Again, these would be your roles. You go ahead and click continue, and then it brings us to what we call pay markets. These are the locations where you're operating, and it refines the data down to really what's relevant for you. Are you competing specifically in the manufacturing space? Or are you starting to look more broadly? Has a competitor recently entered the market? Are you losing talent to something that's adjacent? Bigger companies, smaller companies, you want to be able to scope that out correctly. And so the tool is going to let us go ahead and choose national, but then also if I look and say we've got to be hiring in Boston, we want to be hiring, I don't know, in Atlanta, Seattle, for example. I'm going to go ahead and click on continue, but just notice that the headcount, so I'm benchmarking about 3% of my workforce. You can see the annual spend, and then you have what's known as the benchmark readiness score. This is all about like the amount of detail behind your jobs, which helps the AI do its searching. So we'll click continue. And now we're getting into the part where we choose the data sources. So I can go ahead and choose a PayScale data source, and I might want to go ahead and choose Mercer, for example, as just one of tons of different publishers out there. Let's go ahead and choose, that manufacturing would be perfect. And you can add a whole bunch of different surveys from different sources, and it can also just be PayScale data. So we've set this all up. It's ready to work. If I click on it now, it's engaged the AI. So it's looking across all of your different jobs. It's looking across the available data, and it's starting to look at the different geographies. So if I pull up this assembler role, you'll notice that it was priced to PayScale's Assembler 1 job and Mercer's Manufacturing Assembly Paraprofessional S1. This can be blended into what's known as a composite in comp. You can decide, and this touches on the point that Amy mentioned on strategy. So let's say you're paying to the 25th, let's say you're paying to the 75th, whatever it is, you can key in that target and what you're hoping to price to. And you're also able to see any employees. So those are tied to jobs. Jobs are tied to the market data. And you basically have an instant view into whether your employees are far below the market range, above, below, are they evenly distributed? Are they bunched up where you want them? Totally depends on the strategy, but this lets you kind of gut check your pricing. This is nearly instant in how quickly you can work. The old practice of going and studying job descriptions, studying your internal roles in your catalog, kind of taking a look and seeing what matches up the closest. It's very scientific now. It's not just eyeballing things. So I'm clicking on the last step here, and I went and I priced 3% of my workforce, 11% of the jobs that I have across all kinds of different positions. You're able to go ahead and click through this. I've priced lead assemblers. I've got electrical maintenance technicians, you name it. All these different positions have been priced. Now, again, you can see how this is moving. You can see where the employees are. You can see that 100% of the jobs are priced. You can see that the average market index is 102%, and other metrics like movement, if you've done previous work pricing jobs, if it's gone up or down. And then ultimately you publish, and you will have gone through an exercise that normally takes a tremendous amount of time in just a few minutes. And I really think the future is here. The future is now when it comes to compensation technology, and that type of automation, definitely achievable with Virgil and PayScale. Fun to walk y'all through that.
Kevin, I don't think you're up to show us like data people and how that works, but it just occurred to me as we were talking about the pay transparency, compliance, the benchmarking that you showed us, and then there's the job ad part of it, right? And how do you make sure that that job ad is
Oh gosh, yeah.
local law? We have a tool for that now because PayScale did acquire data people. So if that's something you're interested in, flag it in the comments and we'll follow up with you.
Gosh, and that's a wild piece of technology. So Jocelyn had mentioned the difficulty in looking across these different states, these different even municipalities that have requirements. The technology automatically looks through those, identifies where you have changes in legislation, it flags that, and then it will show, hey, client, you're out of, or user of this technology, you're out of compliance in this location because of this pay law that's changed. You need to do this. You have to do the range. You have to add this detail to your jobs that you're posting. So all kinds of cool technology that makes our lives easier and better, and lets us like rest a little bit easy. That it's not going through and pouring through all the different changes and keeping track of it. We can help you. Yeah, I think between Virgil and PayScale, tons of power.
All right. Thank you so much, Kevin. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and I felt like I know we were trying to limit it to just 10 minutes, but you really were just showing like a small fraction of what PayScale can really do. And, I would encourage anybody who is either having challenges on the benchmarking side or just wants to get more data or is having those issues with how do I keep up with all these pay transparency and pay equity laws to definitely go ahead and take a look at them. And so what we're going to do is at the end of this session, in the next couple of days, we'll be sending out an email with this recording. And in that email, we'll include a link where you can go ahead and sign up for a demo with PayScale and they can take you through that process. But I'm going to go ahead now and just move over to Q&A. Can you see my screen now?
No, we can see you.
Yeah,
Okay, all
not
right.
just yet.
All right, hold on just a second. Okay, do you see it now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. So for those of you who are looking for recertification PDC, you can see the SHRM code on the top right. It is 26AJZK6. So you can go ahead and use that, but we'll jump straight into the questions. Some have come through already. One question here, and apologies, I'm just looking at another screen so I can read them. What data is there on large private practice mental health, like therapy and psychiatry companies between 10 to 300 employees?
Is a very specific question. And we're used to getting questions like this in webinars, but they're difficult to answer in a webinar format because what we really need for that is a custom demo. So I think it would be beneficial to you to reach out and put that in the inquiry of like, I'm looking for this specific thing, so that we can align our resources on our side to answer that question in detail. But Kevin, if you have any incidental in the healthcare side of things, just from your experience doing this, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, speaking of the different sectors where we're really active and where we have a lot of data, healthcare is definitely that. I'd say financial services, manufacturing, but it's not just like a few kind of dominate the pie chart. It's really that you've got a ton of different sectors. It's actually a lot in that area. So I'm sure our solution consultant or one of our folks would be happy to walk you through that, pull up some data and chat through it.
Yeah, they'll go to
Absolutely.
town and build like a custom presentation for you so that you have
Yeah.
exact question that you're looking to answer answered. It's difficult to do for like a broad audience on the call.
One question that came through, will there be an HRCI code? I'm very sorry, right now we are not signed up for HRCI. We will be in the next couple months, so no HRCI code today, unfortunately. Next question, I'd be interested to know if PayScale can do budgetary forecasting for salary and benefits, including both current positions and staff and planned new positions.
It's a good one for
Budget.
you, Kevin, but I can chime.
Yeah, I would say that budget forecasting, there are a couple of different areas in the tool that help. The cost analysis is usually closest tied to spend by department, and then when you think about modeling structures, if any of you folks have traditional grade-based structures, you're able to see what it would look like to realign to the market, move all of your employees up to the median, adjust the midpoint progression and the range spread, see it all nice and visually. I'd say that's one area where cost analysis and forecasting really work. Um, and then advanced reporting and dashboards. I think that there's plenty that you can build in custom within the tool that would help you out in that area.
Yeah, you can build almost anything with the data connections within the tool. And we have a custom services team that can help build out like specific reporting views that you might need to get your CFO aligned with what you need to do within your organization to get up to market. We also have an external survey that we run for the budget planning season. So if you're not familiar with PayScale salary budget survey, that does run between May and June, middle of June, where we collect your information on the percent pay increases you're planning to give for employees across a variety of segments, and then release that in the summer so that you can use that or like leverage that to make sure that you're at least getting the kind of ballpark numbers correct based on what your peers are doing.
Strategically as well. I love that you added all that, Amy. What comes to my mind is Compass, right? So we've
Oh
got
yeah.
a piece of technology, brand new, that is a kind of workforce analytics and planning technology. It's a module just like what we saw within pay factors that can be turned on and made available in the tool. And it lets you see whether you're spending by department in a way that is strategically aligned. You look and see, all right, similar organizations in this cohort that we build are spending X amount on product marketing or X amount on sales, X amount on these different things. Then you can benchmark and plan accordingly. That is very unique. And having been in the space for about 12 years, I haven't seen anything quite like it. So that's another thing. If y'all are interested in that area, do let us know. We'd be happy to demo that for you and walk you through it.
Yeah, it's called Compass. So if you do an outreach and you want to see Compass, it's
Yeah.
very cool. It's very cool, and it helps with that alignment between the HR team and the finance team, the talent acquisition team, and your people managers and other folks that are invested in where like what kind of talent are you hiring, not just what you're paying them.
All right, last question that we have here. How well have you or others done with finding an adequate pay range for the more nuanced roles in smaller nonprofits?
Another custom question where I feel like a custom demo would be the best way to answer that. I do know that we have a lot of nonprofit customers. Kevin, I'm sure that you've known some. And that the tool that Kevin was demoing is like you can like put free form job titles in there and then benchmark it to things that exist, and it'll tell you if there's not data adequate for that particular role. But it's pretty broad. Yeah, we have I think it's like 9,000 jobs or something that's like in the tool. I'd have to go check the numbers for peer, but
I think
it's
it's 5,000, but that's giant. It's a
it's
ton of
significant.
jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I would say so. And it sounds like you've got more of a job-based range approach. That's definitely something we can handle in technology, and you can work across all of your different jobs, align to market, or you could grow into a grade-based structure. Uh, Tons of different ways you can go about things. But yeah, I'd agree with Amy that we'd love to have a conversation, go deeper.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you guys very much. If you really want to get in touch with PayScale today, please go ahead and find Amy or Kevin on LinkedIn and reach out to them directly. Um, Otherwise, we will be sending that link out in the next couple of days so you can sign up. If you're interested in learning more about VirgilHR, which PayScale and VirgilHR have a partnership together, go ahead and scan that. Also, feel free to find me on LinkedIn as well. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time today, and please look out for our next webinar.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.